What's good, Geeky Face-Offs? It's Geekyslim here with Rogue, and today we are going to be discussing an interesting topic that can be somewhat contentious, that being the Mount Rushmore of Black heroes. As we all know, it's Black History Month, and I do feel like our Black heroes tend to not get enough recognition. With that being said, I do believe we can all agree on the three obvious faces that belong in this Rushmore, that being Black Panther, Storm, and Blade, for obvious reasons. The fourth spot is what seems to be contentious, with a variety of options. Time to use our brain, geeks. Let's discuss.
With the first contentious hero that could make an argument for this Mount Rushmore would be none other than Cyborg, a hero that has his own origin and foundation, that also has a cultural reach. His identity wasn't swapped into an existing role. That matters for this Mount Rushmore logic. It favors characters who began as Black icons rather than assuming a legacy. He symbolizes Black presence in sci-fi, tech, and futurism, spaces where Black characters were historically absent or sidelined. In every team, he's a crucial component with his tech and brains, whether it's in the Justice League or Teen Titans. He's always making an impact. He has a long-running animated prominence and a live-action film role. Give me Cyborg any day of the week.
Yo, I'ma be real with you, bruh. We is not claiming Cyborg. Cyborg is the least memorable and least popular character on the Titans to begin with, being in the rest of the team's shadow. And it's sad to say, but Teen Titans Go made Cyborg more of a popular character over the comics and OG Teen Titans cartoon version, just by making him a goofball. And sure, he was in the new 52 Justice League, but how did that go again? Snyderverse tried to incorporate Cyborg as well, which flopped badly. It just seems like any project Cyborg is in is bound to fail, no matter how interesting they try to make him. He's overall just a boring and bland character, a Black version of Iron Man or Vision, but just not as interesting at all, and does nothing to represent the Black culture. If we are going to talk about a character from DC that is far more interesting than Cyborg, who definitely deserves a spot over Cyborg, it's gotta be none other than Green Lantern John Stewart. Just like Cyborg, John Stewart is a superhero from DC Comics, being one of the most well-known members of the Green Lantern Corps. John Stewart is iconic for the Black community because he represents strength, intelligence, leadership, and integrity in a space where Black superheroes were once rare. He's also one of DC's first prominent Black superheroes, being introduced in 1971, which was an important era for the Black community due to Black representation in mainstream comics being limited and often stereotypical during that time. He showed that a Black man could be authoritative, disciplined, strategically calm under pressure, morally grounded, and heroic without being reduced to stereotypes, which matters deeply for the young Black audience who rarely saw themselves portrayed that way. Seeing a Black man stand shoulder to shoulder with icons like Superman and Batman is a huge deal, normalizing Black excellence in spaces traditionally centered on white heroes. John Stewart is iconic because he showed that Black men could be cosmic protectors, intellectual leaders, and moral anchors, not just in their communities, but in the universe.
John Stewart, more like Stuart Little. He can't hang with these big dogs. He's just not that guy. John Stewart is Black, but most of his defining stories revolve around cosmic duty, military discipline, and moral responsibility. His race rarely drives the plot, symbolism, or social commentary. It did not provide a way that reshaped how Black identity was portrayed in comics. Characters like Miles Morales or Luke Cage changed conversations about who could be a hero. Also, with limited mainstream and cultural penetration, pause if needed, John Stewart hasn't had a standalone blockbuster film, a solo TV series centered on him, or widespread symbolic adoption in Black pop culture. He's just a fan favorite Green Lantern with a short run. But unlike Jon Stewart, someone who we all grew up on that deserves the spotlight as number 4 is my man, Static Shock. I know this is not a shock to any of y'all. Static Shock belongs on the Mount Rushmore of iconic black heroes because he changed what black hero representation looked like for an entire generation. He was also the first mainstream black teen superhero. Static wasn't a sidekick or a background character. He was the lead of his own animated series on Kids WB, reaching millions of kids weekly. For many black viewers, he was the first hero who looked, talked, and lived like them. He also crossovered with big names like Batman Beyond and the Justice League themselves, and not just once, multiple times, solidifying his character to be up there with these heavy hitters. He is also a black hero rooted in real life issues. His stories tackled racism and police brutality, gun violence and gangs, peer pressure, bullying and grief, also poverty and community responsibility. He proved superheroes could fight systematic problems, not just villains. Even decades later, Static is still referenced, rebooted, and demanded by fans. Proof that his impact wasn't temporary nostalgia, but cultural imprint to this day.
Hey man, I ain't gonna lie, bruh. I mess with Static heavy for sure. He's a cool young dude who's definitely iconic to many black fans that grew up in the early 2000s. Key words, early 2000s. The problem is that Static isn't universally considered iconic in the same way as other black heroes are due to limited mainstream push compared to other black heroes such as Black Panther, Blade, and Storm, who have had or starred in major blockbuster films and or long-standing comic prominence. Despite being popular, Static never got a live-action movie, a major cinematic universe spotlight, nor a long-term comic relaunch success. Without consistent mainstream exposure, cultural icon status becomes harder to sustain. Static disappeared from comics for long stretches of time. Long gaps equals fading visibility. Meanwhile, other black characters were consistently pushed by Marvel and DC, keeping them culturally relevant. To be honest, he pretty much has the same powers as Storm, just isn't nearly as popular as her. But enough of that. We're not living in the early 2000s anymore. Last time I checked, we were in 2026. If we're going to talk about a black culturally relevant character in this era, it has to be none other than Captain America. That's right. Y'all heard me correctly. The new face of America, that being Sam Wilson, who by far represents the black culture over Static Shock. Sam Wilson becoming Captain America carries weight, as he's now the symbol of the United States itself. When a black man takes up that shield, it reshapes who gets to embody America, reclaiming a symbol that historically excluded black people. Captain America represents patriotism, national identity, and moral leadership. For most of American history, those ideals were legally denied to black Americans. Now, seeing a black man hold the shield reframes the idea of who America belongs to. It's not just diversity, it's symbolic correction. Unlike most black superheroes that avoid race, Sam Wilson attacks it head on, redefining patriotism. Unlike Steve, Sam challenges politicians and demands the country to do better. Sam Wilson becoming Captain America says a black man is not just a part of America, but can also represent its highest ideals, which should deem him worthy enough to be on the Mount Rushmore of black heroes.
Sam Wilson, more like Rumpelstiltskin. He got you fooled, man, because ain't no way that he's up there. I'ma just keep it simple. I do not need to dive deep into this. He's just too new in the position to be iconic. He's not his own brand, and from day one, he was just a sidekick in the shadow. To this day, When you say Captain America, you automatically still think of Steve Rogers. Until the day comes when people's first thought is Sam Wilson, then it could be given more consideration to be grouped up with these other iconic names in this Mount Rushmore. But alright, y'all. It was fun in games, but I'm not playing anymore. We are locking in. Since we're talking about the modern era, I'll give y'all undoubtedly number 4. The character on this Mount Rushmore is none other than himself, Spider-Man. Miles Morales is considered an iconic black character because he wasn't a sidekick, he is Spider-Man. Created in 2011, Miles didn't inherit a secondary mantle, he became Spider-Man in Marvel's Ultimate Universe. That distinction matters. He wasn't Spider-Man's friend, he carried the core mythos. His cultural and background is displayed with his language and family dynamics, his Brooklyn setting, and also his music taste and visual style. But it never reduced him to stereotypes. His race shapes his perspective without defining his entire personality. That balances and makes him feel authentic rather than stereotypical. He represents possibility. The line "anyone can wear the mask" became symbolic. For many kids, Miles was the first time they saw themselves centered as the hero in one of the world's most recognizable superhero roles. Everything he's in is a success and he cannot fail. He's not even in the MCU yet, and he's already set at a high status. Miles is the only correct answer, and I'll stand on that.
Look, bruh, I love Miles Morales Spider-Man, especially the movies. But I do want to say this. Just because he's the most popular black hero, doesn't mean he's the most iconic black hero, as popularity doesn't necessarily always correlate to iconic. Also, I don't mean to be that guy, but Miles Morales is also half Hispanic, and me saying that isn't taking Miles away from the black community. But what has Miles Morales actually done to represent the black culture? Even Static Shock, who I don't believe is on the Rushmore, has addressed cultural topics such as racism. And yeah, Sam Wilson isn't as popular as Miles, yet he does speak out for the black community, demanding change. Politics aside though, as much as I love Miles Morales Spider-Man, he just doesn't have the longevity of decades building up to be considered iconic. But someone who does have that, and is also from New York, who I truly believe 100% takes his spot, and definitely represents the black culture, is none other than the Power Man himself, Luke Cage. Luke Cage has been a cultural icon for the black community for decades, being one of the first black superheroes in a standalone comic. That visibility in the early 1970s, during the post-civil rights era, was groundbreaking. Luke Cage is deeply connected to the streets, and his world felt rooted in a real black cultural hub. Even the Netflix series leaned heavily into black music genres, such as Wu-Tang, soul, and other hip-hop influences. We see the series deal with community politics and police brutality conversations, showcasing that it is culturally specific. Luke Cage's most famous trait is that he's bulletproof, which for many, that power carries symbolic weight. A black man immune to bullets in a country with a long history of gun violence against black bodies. Luke Cage is iconic because he represents early black superhero visibility, cultural grounding, symbolizes resilience, and evolution of black representation in mainstream comics. He may not have the global box impact of Miles Morales, but historically and culturally, Luke Cage helped open the door. I do 100% truly believe Luke Cage takes the 4th spot.
Luke Cage, loose page, keep him in a cage because he don't belong up here. Luke Cage is respected. but he hasn't had a billion-dollar solo film phenomenon like Black Panther, decades of X-Men flagship status like Storm, or genre-defying box office leadership like Blade in the late 90s. His Netflix run was culturally important, but it didn't shift the global landscape in the same seismic way. Also, everyone talks about The Punisher and Daredevil TV show. You might as well say Jessica Jones was a better show. He's just not that guy, pal. There's nothing interesting about him that would put him on a Mount Rushmore category. So I know I went with Miles as the fourth character, but I completely forgot about this iconic, heroic being that belongs there instead, and that's my girl, Ironheart.
Hey bruh, you ain't had to do it like that. All jokes aside though, the person that I believe should be on this Rushmore is none other than Shuri, the MCU's current Black Panther, T'Challa's sister. Reasoning being... Damn, man. Sounds like timer has gone off, meaning it's time to wrap it up. Just as I was about to give a well-written reasoning for Shuri. Oh well, it is what it is. What do you guys think? Do y'all agree or disagree with any of the arguments we displayed? If so, drop your opinions in the comments. Let us know. And remember folks, stay geeky.